Alright, this is my Ritual League Day 3 update. Today, our main gear upgrades were a Soul Tether. We got a Quill Rain and a Rear Guard to try out Ensnaring Arrow weapon swap. And then we got our 3 jewels, our Corrupted Blood Jewel, a Might of the Meek, and a Red Nightmare. Aside from gear changes, we also made some changes to our skill gem setup. We dropped Leap Slam in favor of Shield Charge. Leap Slam was linked to faster attacks and Fortify, to apply Fortify and to move around. While Leap Slam is the king of melee movement skills, it is not that good at applying Fortify, since you have to jump up and down, and especially if we apply a bleed to a target, sometimes they die before we actually land on them and we end up not getting the Fortify and wasting that half second kind of hanging around in the air. Shield Charge is much more reliable and consistent when it comes to applying Fortify, even if it's a little bit clunkier to move around with. That's why we also use Dash with Second Wind to move around, though that can also get clunky sometimes as well. You can check out my Awakener level 5 Sirus skill video to see that there are several times when I double dash on accident straight out of Sirus's circle to reset his phase, or accidentally double dash into one of his attacks, or shield charge on my way out of the meteor maze and just hit a wall. Our other skill gem change was that instead of leveling random gems in our offhand, we tried out Ensnaring Arrow. I had Ensnaring Arrow linked to increased AoE and greater multiple projectiles so that it would hit more reliably. The purpose of Ensnaring Arrow is to increase our single target damage, but I didn't find it all that effective for the bosses that really mattered. Sirus just teleports around way too much for Ensnaring Arrow to be effective. You basically have to re-weapon swap and recast Ensnaring Arrow about every 5 seconds, and in the event that you get hit by one of Sirus's attacks or spells in that time, you could very well be killed, or at least chunked, and that would leave you without any life flask charges for the rest of the fight. Overall, I don't think that Ensnaring Arrow is worth it on Sirus. I would probably still keep it in my offhand and use it for more stationary bosses, like some of the Conquerors and like map bosses who don't move around or teleport too much. In those cases, I think Ensnaring Arrow can be very good and very helpful. Alright, so I started today with 12 Watchstones and I ended with 20 Watchstones and an 8-minute AL5 Sirus kill. 8 minutes is pretty good time for an AL5 kill on day 3, but it is slow compared to what is possible. So, our two biggest problems today were not dealing quite as much damage as we want, and getting one-shot a whole lot, even back in yellow maps. So, our first problem was not having enough damage. I took a look at other gladiators on PoE Ninja, and I saw that most of the people who had Earthquake did not take the Slaughter node here. And I realized that that's because Slaughter gives you attack speed, which you don't want. It messes up your Fist of War interaction. So we got rid of Slaughter. We rounded out the rest of the Splitting Strikes wheel with the Axe and Ailment nodes. We went Champion of the Cause to get increased Pride and Flesh and Stone effect. And we got Warcries Exert 1 additional attack. In order to avoid those passive changes, we had to respec our tree a little bit. We lost 1 point of life and all res next to Barbarism, and we lost most of the Scion life wheel. We were at 6,300 life at the end of yesterday, and we are only at 5,600 life at the end of today. Even before I made these changes, though, when we had 6,300 life, we were getting one-shot by even mobs in yellow maps and bosses in yellow maps a whole lot. And the reason why was because I didn't have any life leech or any way of recovering life outside of my life flasks. So what we did was we got a Soul Tether, which replaced our Stygian Vice. The Soul Tether lets us keep leeching life even when we're already full on HP. That, in combination with our Might of the Meek, boosting our leech nodes down here, as well as picking up this leech wheel down here, gives us a whole lot of life leech. This is a new defensive layer that we did not have for days 1 and 2. The combination of a lot of life leech as well as soul tether lets you face tank a lot of bosses. In order to make up for some of the lost life on the Scion wheel, we got Might of the Meek, which increased the effectiveness of some of the life nodes that we took. We got the Red Nightmare, which capped out our block chance, which also let us respec this part of the tree. We anointed Command of Steel, and then we dropped everything else leading up to it. That let us afford the passive points to grab the more offensive nodes as well as the leech nodes on the tree. And finally, we got our Corrupted Blood Jewel so that we were ready to take on Sirus. The entire video for my AL5 Sirus kill is uploaded on this channel. I will link it in the description below with an up-to-date POB as of the end of day 3 of Ritual League for this build. On a budget, this build does pretty well against Alk&Go tier 16 bosses. Against Conquerors and Sirus, it can start to take a while. This build does not do well in juiced maps. In mechanics like Incursion, Legion, and Syndicate lab raids, this build struggles a little bit because it can take a little bit longer to kill some of those unique monsters and those really tough rares. I'd recommend sticking to tier 14, 15, and 16 maps with an Alk&Go strategy, saving your juice for a different build once you've used this build to gather enough currency to transition nicely. I hope this video was helpful. Tomorrow I'm going to be going for 32 Watchstones. I might not be able to get all 12 of those, but we will do as much as we can. I definitely want 32 Watchstones by Friday, and then we can see about maybe transitioning to different builds or farming for a headhunter or a different chase item.